With this time of year, I'd like to remind all of us, myself included, that we're experiencing one of those Sunday mornings where the weather outside is just like heaven's going to be. Can I hear an amen? Amen. How can it be better? Just like heaven's going to be. It kind of gives you something to look forward to. Can I hear an amen? Amen. So this morning, Jesus is taking us to a teaching that is, in a lot of ways, challenging for us as His people. If you're not a Christian and you're sitting in this church this morning, then a lot of what this preacher has to say is going to slide right past you, go right over the top of your head. I know that to be true. Please be patient with us. If you are a believer, then listen to me. Then this pointed teaching that Jesus brings us to this morning is one that is in so many ways remarkably challenging for us, in some ways difficult for us, in every way meant to grow us and edify us as His people. Let's start here. So how do we, as human beings, in the course of our lives, how do we usually decide whether something has value, and if it does, what value it has? Listen to it again. How do you and I, in the course of things, decide whether something has value, and if it does, what value it has? Well, generally, you know this, by how much it costs. We'll look at whatever the thing is in life, and we'll decide almost immediately, we'll place a category out there almost immediately, that this thing, whatever this thing is this valuable because it costs this much. So, for example, we'll say that a Mercedes is more valuable than a bicycle. Or that a Brooks Brothers suit is more valuable than a pair of khaki jeans. Or that a steak dinner is better than cereal. Let's just do that. We do this. How do we set a value? How do we decide what the value is of something? Well, by how much it costs. And so you hear this clearly this morning. That is so much a part of our culture and thinking that in some ways we don't even necessarily think about it. It's just an automatic response for us. And then we come to this remarkable teaching of Jesus, and I'll tell you this morning, it is remarkable. And it turns that kind of thinking that is so common to us as human beings right on its head. Listen, our life in Jesus is a gift to us, you hear me this morning, that costs us absolutely nothing. In fact, it's actually a whole bunch of gifts. It's this perfect forgiveness that He earned by His life and death on the cross. Forgiveness that covers every sin, washes away every mistake, is the cure for every sin, big, small, and in between. This forgiveness, listen, that Jesus earned on the cross, it costs you and I as His children absolutely nothing. The peace that He established with the Father by His death and resurrection. So the Heavenly Father, who has created us from His heart, even though we're rebellious children, is no longer angry with us in any way. There is no wrath of the Father toward His children because of the work of Jesus. That wondrous, listen to me, that wondrous peace is given to us, and it costs us absolutely nothing. This life that rose up from the tomb as Jesus breathed again and came to life again. The life that by His kindness and love for you and for me He's brought to our living and planted inside of us as His children. This life that is growing toward eternity that He gave to us, you hear me this morning, it costs us absolutely nothing. This life that we've been given in Jesus, this wonderful kindness that you and I, day in and day out, week in and week out as His children, that we live with, is all given to us. So you hear me this morning, all those gifts were given to us simply out of love. Not because we'd earned them or deserved them or somehow had a right to them. This is a wondrous thing. But simply because this kind Father, through His good and innocent Son, loved us so much that He decided and then purposed and then carried out that every one of these gifts should be given to you and me. And I'll repeat for you, and they cost us nothing. In fact, for every one of us, each one of us this morning, gosh, this is good news. For every one of us, every one of them is absolutely free. I want to go back and say what I said before because it's important to our conversation today. In so many ways as people, that runs so contrary to what we've been taught and believe and hold to be true, and how we function in our lives. And so we'll hear that the cost is nothing, that is free for us. And somehow as human beings, as broken human beings, almost immediately that lowers the value for us. All of a sudden, it doesn't seem to be something oh so important because it didn't cost me anything. If it didn't cost me anything, how valuable can it be? But I want you to hear this morning, that's not the end of the teaching. Listen. This life in Jesus that you and I have been given is also a gift, you hear me this morning, that costs us everything. The price for you and me is our so-called independence. This idea that as human beings we can go through our lives and my life is mine, to do with what I choose, to use as I choose, to plan and purpose as I choose. My life is mine. Well, listen to me this morning, Christians. When He claimed us in the blood and gave us the gift of forgiveness and peace and life, when He made us His children at no cost to us, that actually costs us everything, starting with our very lives. As Christians, we no longer belong to ourselves. This life is not mine. And that reaches, so you hear this morning, that reaches into every single corner of our living. In every place, every shadowed place, every open place. It's our things and our thinking. It's our talents and our gifts. It's our time. It's all of us and every part of us. We're no longer possessions of our own. We belong to this God who has claimed us. The price of belonging to Him is everything. And in that everything, Jesus tells us, now you listen, in that everything along the way will be crosses. He uses this language that's not only foreign to the world, but terribly uncomfortable for us. Jesus says, if you're coming after me, if you're going to follow me, then that's going to include crosses in your life. Well, holy cow, that's not what I want. Wait a minute here. I want life to be smooth and easy and fun. I want to be happy all the time and fat and good. I want life to roll along. I want life to be like the weather in Kentucky this morning all the time. And yet He says to me, He says to you too, if you're going to follow me, here's part of the price. Along the way there's going to be crosses. And so we understand what He's talking about. Listen to it. That means that in the course of our lives, as we journey toward heaven by His grace, you and I, as Christians, first of all, as Christians, are not going to be immune to the broken things of the world. We will get sick. We will lose marriages. We will struggle with our children. We'll get fired from jobs. We will get depressed. We will deal with all the things that are part of a broken world. Because as Christians we live in the world, we will bear crosses. Now listen to this. And sometimes we will bear crosses because we are Christians. Because we're strangers and aliens and foreigners, the Scripture says. We don't belong here. We're square pegs and this is a round hole. And so in the course of your life and mine, listen to me, part of the cost that Jesus lays out for us in this giftedness of belonging to Him is that along the way in our lives as we journey toward heaven, there will be crosses. It is such an interesting thing in my own life, I suspect in yours too, that I'm almost always surprised. Just about always disappointed. Almost always shaking my head. This past week, my sister called and said, my oldest brother, Gene, who has always been Gene, the oldest brother, you know, in families, he's the oldest brother. That means he knows everything and other things. And I love him deeply and dearly. I mean, I just love him, and now he's in his late 70s. Well, Mert called and said, Gene's been diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And I'm going, wait a minute. Time out. What's the deal here? Come on. And then I hear this word. If you're going to follow me, if you're going to be my child, if you're going to live in my kingdom, I'm going to love you and forgive you and protect you and provide for you and promise you peace in heaven. I am. And I'm not going to charge you for any of those things. But get this, child, if you're going to follow me, there is going to be a cost. It's kind of everything. Things that are precious to you. Things that you count as being oh so worthwhile, oh so valuable. Along the way, there'll be crosses. And I want you to hear this morning, loved ones, because it's so important, in fact. This life in Jesus that he's talking about to us this morning, he means, now you hear me, he means it to be something that is worth everything to us. He wants it to be the center of our lives and the joy of our living and the foundation of our lives as his children. He wants it to mean, to count, to be valuable in every way for us, to be the most worthwhile thing for us. And I'll be the first one to say this morning, I want you to hear with me and join with me. That math is impossible for us. Look at me. That math is impossible for us. If God wanted that in my life, I think then he shouldn't have given me a wife to love, or children that are dear to my heart, or a ministry that lights up my life. He wants this following him to be the most worthwhile, the most worthy thing, the most valuable thing in our lives. And I'll repeat for you, listen, it's not just you, it's all of us. That math is impossible for us, but you hear me this morning. It's not impossible for God. If you came today because you're with family, and that was your reason. If you came this morning because it's Sunday morning and it's nice out, and so let's go to church. If you came this morning because there's a burden on your heart and in your life and you're struggling with it. If you came this morning just because, well, I want you to hear this morning, God brought you this morning, loved ones. He brought you this morning, me too, so that we can hear with great clarity, grow in our hearts with great conviction, grow up in our lives with great grace. That he can make this life of following him ever more valuable to us. This morning when I leave here, I pray you too. It's going to be worth a little more to me than when I came through the doors. And isn't that a kind gift? I'll let you hear it. Oh, yes it is. Today, loved ones, today, he's not calling us to something small and cheap. He's calling us to a life that is worth more than anything. It's a life that's free to us, and it takes all we have. It is the best life there is, no matter what the cost. And today, you know what? Today it's ours. In Jesus, it's ours. And this Sunday morning, this is a teaching of the Lord. If you would rise, please.